We try our best to inform people the correct picture and correct what's going on in the world, and particularly the war situation. And in the absence of the credibility, credibility of the program, in fact, and the world, we basically have a duty as a conscious mind. And we think that human beings have a conscious mind. We think that people should have a conscious mind. And indeed, people should have some sort of a sense of fairness rather than the sense of what I call it the sense of have no sense at all. In fact, majority of the people of the world is basically are not bothered, because we're talking about majority Far East, Europe, and of course America and Canada and a greater world as well. So indeed, the Middle East has always been the subject of subjugation by the Western powers. Before it was, as I said in one of my articles recently written for publications, that it was a British Empire who was messing about with the with the Middle East and Far East during the Mughal Empire, taking over and creating an empire and then exploiting the resources of the region. That was fundamental reason for them to be, because the region is rich with the resources, natural gas and oil, that God perhaps has given to that region, and to nobody else in the world that type of resources that they have. And so therefore their teeth are always on that resources, on that wealth. And therefore the cause of the war has always been, as it was in Iraq, and it is mentioned by the Paul Wolfowitz, who was the World Bank chairman of the World Bank, but at the time of the attack on Iraq, on Saddam Hussein, was that we made a decision for attacking Iraq because the country is rocking on the sea of oil. Now, hello. This is their resources, whatever resources you have. Now you wanted to go to this awful man wants to go to Greenland to take their natural resources, plutonium or whatever the natural resources they have, lithium they have and all that. We'll take over that. And now he's saying that we will send a ground troop to take Karg Island. The natural resources, the 90% oil which has been exported by Iran through the neighboring Karg Island belongs to appropriately to Iran itself. So all of that, as I said, it's in a very interesting way that how to actually bring any justice to anybody. And that is what is the biggest problem in this world. Is United Nations, Rashada has touched on that United Nations has been set up after the Second World War in order to balance the bigger power and the smaller power and things like that. But that's gone out of the window. No international law exists right now as we speak. It's the law of the jungle. And, the people who sit on the United Nations table are spineless countries, biased countries that are licking the backside of the US and allies and things like that. So this is something, even here, I must mention that point. Recently, we had a Shamrock ceremony, a great ceremony that has been going on for years, that the Irish Prime Minister, Taoiseach, as we call it here, goes to America to present a bowl of shamrock, which is a herb grown in Ireland, to the American president. And so with a lot of opposition leaders who criticized this year's shamrock presentation to Donald Trump, in fact, it happened. There was obviously people who was pro, who was against, and pro because the economy of the smallest country like Ireland, 5.5 million people, is dependent on the American economy. The big giants and all that are here. Google, Microsoft, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. Not TikTok. TikTok is Chinese. The Facebook, they're all there, and the pharmaceutical companies. So there's a huge tax revenue which comes from these companies into Ireland. Irish exchequer, and the country floats economically. Because of that, nobody wants to jeopardize that. However, in a strictest way, I would say, that he did diplomatically mention this point, but he also mentioned that he's doing a great job in the war on Iran. Now, that phrase is just not acceptable. What do you mean by that? Great job. He's doing an awful job, as far as I'm concerned, as far as we're concerned, because they are losing people, material, 5 billion a day, the kind of cost which is occurring, and driving the economy of US and the rest of the world to the absolutely to the gutter. You can see that in India, people are suffering. People are really, queuing. Who? Ordinary people, not the rich people, not the people who have servants to queue for them in order to get the cylinder, a gas cylinder, because they don't have a natural gas built in under the ground. They're still using the gas cylinder. So backward our people in India are, because none of this thing would have happened if they would have developed a system of supplying gas like anywhere else in the world underneath the ground, and automatically it comes to the houses. No, people still buy cylinder, those awful red cylinder. But rich people doesn't care. They don't care in Fabricat. They're servants who go and buy them and all that. Anyway, that beside the point. The point is that India has not playing a cordial behavior. Has not been recently an article in Hindu newspaper. Media has now been used in India in order to praise the aggressor of this war. So it's up to you to analyze, to listen, and to make up your mind, because this is what it's all about. A conscious mind must be a fair mind. And I'm blessed to have our team, a small team of Sharad in London and Charmaine here, who do a lot of research in order to get a correct information about India to the listeners. So all of that is very interesting. And shameful, but how shameful it can be, because it's falling on the deaf ear, and falling on thick skins, and it falling on the rulers in certain parts of the world who are in cahoots with the Donald Trump and Netanyahu. Hopefully, they will be wiped out soon. They will be either removed by their own people, and they will die and forgotten about in the history of his history pages. However, the brave nation of Iran will continue. And as Abbas Araghchi has said, that nobody would dare to attack Iran anymore. Yes, they have recurrent losses. Yes, they have been pushed back a few years to rebuild their own country and the infrastructure and things like that. The buildings can be restructured. Human beings can be reborn. And one generation replaced the other generations. This generation is the generations of, the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is risen after 45 years, or 60 years, in fact. In 1979 was the revolution happened. And it is the revolution of this truly Islamic Republic, who pride themselves with honesty, upright, and indeed with the bravery which they practice, taking the bravery of the grandson of great Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Hussein, and his brother Abul Fazl Abbas. All of them faced the enemy, faced the unrelentless situation at the time of 1,400 years after the demise of the Prophet Muhammad, and they had to face this kind of brutal aggression from a ruler of the time. Anyway, that's another day's chapter, and I will talk about that some other time, not today.